Wagwan Generals, welcome back to another episode of the Shift Gear Podcast. We're here 2 weeks in a row, which honestly for us is a pretty good achievement these days. We'll take any dub the way we can get it. We had a little history for y'all last week. It seemed like the appetite for Pokemon history is a little bit up right now. I know a lot of people are like playing retro and like this kind of like dead time and stuff. So we decided to come back with another one. So we're gonna do another cool one. We were kind of just like thinking of like filler episodes and stuff we could do right now. So this was somewhat high up on the list. I mean, it can be a vibes episode, you know?
Yeah, for
Sometimes
sure.
we just don't got anything.
I know we can. You and I can. We haven't had like some sports talk lately, Neil. So what have you been when
Yeah,
watching sports wise? I was watching the Raptors last night. That was good.
huge one.
I was watching some football on the weekend. I was watching Philip Rivers coming out of retirement, almost willing
That's
into a
bro.
victory. That was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, that was wild. Like the Raps last night was a great story. Philip Rivers is an even better story. That was okay. So here's the thing. So like Philip Rivers comes out. He's 44 years old. He's a grandpa. He has 10 kids, and he coaches at a high school. It's his job. And he comes out, and you think that he's just going to get rattled, right? Like you're playing at Seattle, one of the best defenses in the league. They're sacking everybody. They protected him really well. And like, sure, okay, most of the plays were like RPOs, handoffs, like short passes. He's not getting drilled. But for a 44-year-old to come into the game after 5 years off and not die, I think that's
It
a
was
big
impressive.
W for everyone around. Yeah.
Like I remember his very first pass of the game. I like saw it. It was like wobbling. There's like no spiral. But like to his credit, like he played within himself. He did not try and like be a hero or whatever. He understood the mission. So it would kind of be like, I'm trying to have like a Pokemon analogy. It would be like, I don't know, if like you and I turned like 50 and like we hadn't played Pokemon in like 10 years and we came back, we're like, all right, we're gonna play Raging Bolt, play aggro. We're not trying to play Guardy out here. And then make day 2 or something.
You know your game. You know
Yeah.
at a point in time you're just not that guy anymore, and you got to just figure it out. I think for him too, it's like he's always had like that weird like arm angle. Like football for me has been like a huge obsession of mine the last 5 years. Prior to that, I obviously watched, but not as intently. I went back and watched some like Phillip Rivers highlights just to like get hyped up for this game. His throws have always looked weird. Like his little like wobbly ass throw to start the game didn't surprise me as much because he's always done that for some reason, and it just works, bro. So, I mean, shout out, bro. He survived a full NFL game. I don't think they start him again, but we'll see.
But I mean, they might as well just start him again. Like they're basically out of the playoffs. Like it's kind of funny. Like it's good PR. Like
Yeah, I think their thing now is like if you're out of the playoffs, you might as well develop the guy who's
that
actually
is
going to play for
true.
you next year. Right? Like it's kind of like the way the Raptors did it last year, where it's like, all right, we're cooked. To like get Scotty out of the game, bro. Let's put these guys on like long term IR and just don't even touch him, so the rest of our guys can play the game. So that's kind of where they're at, where the Colts are at. I was talking in my own YouTube video the other day about how bad the Las Vegas Raiders are. Like I think genuinely, there's a case to be made that they might be the worst football team I've ever watched.
There's no
like
way the Cleveland
brutal.
Browns exist or like the Jets.
The Browns and the Jets clear this team, bro. Like these guys are that's like the epitome of ass. So, anyways, I won't get too much into it, but I want to know down below if y'all are sports fans, what do you think of the Las Vegas Raiders? Are they the worst football team we've seen in the last 5 years? I'm curious to know. But anyways, sorry, we'll wrap it back up. Coming back. So what we decided to do this week, guys, is the Sun and Moon to Lost Thunder format. So I'll walk you guys through the thought process real quick. So normally our videos go like something like this. So Kieran will message me, yo, what time are you available to record? I say, I don't know, like whatever, this time, that time. Then we go, what the hell are we even doing? And so this was no different to that. This was almost like prior to like 10 minutes ago, I don't think we had any direction of what was going on here.
Well, we talked yesterday.
Yeah, we talked yesterday, but we didn't know what we were doing. I had a long town. So I was driving back home, and I had a town hall for my company. So I had a lot of time to think about this, and we decided that Sun and Moon to Lost Thunder is like the most like recent retro quote unquote format, I suppose. That's still very affordable. And like you can classify 2024 as a retro if you'd like, but I think I consider something retro once it's been like 5 or 6 years removed, right? And so this format is it's three things. So first of all, it's cheap. You can build these decks for cheap. They're fun. I guess that was my second point. They're fun. They're interactive. And then my third point is there's a large amount of decks you can play that are all competitive. So for those reasons, Sunlot is a very like popular format for a lot of players. I mean, I have like a bunch of decks. I'm literally sitting here and I have like all my Sunlot decks next to me. Like I bring these to cups. We play around. It's pretty easy to get into and hang out with. And it's cheap, and I think that's the most important part.
I have some too.
I see you're pulling some.
I don't know if they're on my desk. I have them somewhere on my shelf. I mean, I might not find it in time for this episode, but I have a bunch as well. I think I only have 2 or 3, but
it's a great format.
It is fun, for sure. Like, I think Sun and Moon era, we've talked about a lot, is one of the best eras. Like, there's the 2017 NAIC. Actually, the 2017 Worlds is a good format. I think this is like one of the better Sun and Moon formats. Yeah, it's really balanced, I think, which I like. I think one thing that's very unique about this format that does not really exist as much in modern Pokemon is there's not that many decks that like one-shot the other Pokemon.
Yes.
Like, the cost to get a one-hit KO is actually very, very high in this format. Like, there are decks that are built around it. Like, there's stuff like Rayquaza, there's like Blacephalon, but they're balanced by like having like lower HP 2 prizers and just like less powerful like abilities than a lot of the other decks. So no, definitely a super, super cool format. It's balanced. There's a lot of cool mechanics in it, which we'll go over. And like Anil said, there's good deck diversity that are all fairly like close with each other. So
just to walk it in a little bit more. So part of like what we want to do with this, like maybe we'll turn this into a series. I don't know. We'll look at all these like retro decks. But part of what we want to do is introduce folks that are like newer to the game to these old formats and kind of inspire you to build them or at least explore them, right? So our ideals are this. So we want to introduce you to it. We want to let you guys know what you need to build it. And we want to kind of give you an overview of what the format is, what it kind of behaves like, what kind of person it's going to favor. And so our end goal to this whole thing, I think, aside from making a filler episode, which is clearly our first goal, is to at least educate you on what this format was. So for those of you who are familiar with it, we're going to dive into some of the details. For those of you who are very new to it, we're going to kind of give you the TLDR of like the Sum-A-Lot for Dummies kind of thing. So we can start wherever you want, Karen, but I was thinking maybe we can start with some of like the most like key cards in the format and kind of walk through some cards people are going to see a lot.
Yeah, I think we'll start with like the mechanics maybe, and then the key cards in those mechanics. So I think one of the key mechanics that's like unique to this era is the Prism Stars. So Prism Stars are like kind of like Radiant cards in a way. You could only play one of each Prism Star in your deck, but you could play multiple. So one of like the most important cards, which we've talked about on this pod before, it's one of my favorite cards, and I think one of the best design cards of all time is like this Ditto Prism Star. So Ditto's ability was it can evolve into any stage 1. But you can only play one Ditto in your deck. Otherwise, like every deck would, not every deck, but a lot of decks would play multiple copies of Ditto Prism. And the reason this card is so cool is that like it allows you to play stage 1s in your deck without playing the basic. Like imagine in our current format, if you wanted to play Toad Scroll, but you didn't want to play Toad School, you could just play Ditto Prism Star and play a Toad Scroll. So the reason this is kind of neat is because like let's say you play tech cards, so I'll just keep it modern to make it like easier for people. So like, let's say you want to play Toad School in your deck. If I'm not playing against like Dango, like I don't really need that. So then Ditto Prism Star can just act as like a 5th copy of like whatever basic your deck is running. So like I don't know, if you're playing like a Dragapult deck, for example, it's basically like your 5th GP. So it really allows for like really, really creative deck building and like tech cards. And we'll see some in this format, like cards like Alola and Muck are popular. And then just a lot of decks in this format mix and match evolution lines. That's a very key thing in this format. Like there's like 3 stage 1, like, or 3 evolution lines in a deck. So Ditto lets you kind of just have like a 2nd copy of a basic or like a 3rd or 4th or 5th, like I'm saying. So Ditto is definitely the most played Prism Star, I think, in this format. But there's definitely a lot of
close, I think. There's a couple others that might take that crown. But yeah, Ditto, I think, is the most diverse, right? It's in like a bunch of different decks. I think I actually have a limitless entry that's an 0-1-1 line of stage 1. You don't have to check it, but I think I do. It's it's literally like 0 of the basics. And then I think there was an Alolan Muck and a Macargo. It would be like a 2017 something or other.
It might be this.
Maybe that one. Yeah. Is there... It's like an 0-1-1 or something?
Yeah, here, like...
it's an 0-1.
Yeah, 0-1. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, like, Anil played this Alolan
Muck, a good example.
And he didn't play Alolan Grimer in his deck.
Yeah. So what this does is it, like, basically says, instead of having 2 dead cards in every matchup, I'm going to have 1 dead card, right?
Yes.
And that Ditto, like, you guys would not believe the amount of, like, utility this has. Like, my list is only, like, a starting point. There are lists that literally, like I was saying, have multiple stage 1s that evolve from this one Ditto. And as long as you don't prize it, you could hypothetically go into any of those stage 1s. So Prism Stars, like Kieran hit it on the head. Yeah, look at that. Like, look at all those decks it's in.
It was in almost any deck that evolved pretty much played this card.
Yeah, like the Prism Stars have such a wide range of utility, and I think the Prism Stars are really like OP on the surface. But the fact that you could play one of each allowed for some really cool combos. And I think it was like a unique mechanic that was exclusive to this time. Well, not really. It behaved the same way as old Gold Stars. So it wasn't exclusive at this time. It existed in like 2005, 2006, but like the mechanic itself was cool, and I don't think anybody had any beef with it the same way people had beef with Ace Specs.
Yeah, I agree. Super cool. The other one that I think we'll see in one of the decks is this card, the Super Boost Energy.
Yep.
It like again, like the effects are so interesting. It was like if it's attached to a stage 2 and you have 3 or more stage 2s in play, it counts as 4 energy. So like you might think it's crazy to get 3 stage 2s in play, but there's one deck, which is one of my favorite ones in this format, is the Gardevoir GX deck that use this energy pretty effectively. So yeah, there's like a lot of really cool Prism Stars. I forget some of these when they came out, if they're in this format or like after, but like this Diancie Prism and Synergy were very important cards. Like I think after the set after this one, the Volcanion was a good card
as well.
Lunala was a good card afterwards. Like like the Shaman was a good card.
And these cards were integral in some ways to these decks functioning. So like if you look at the format after this, the one with Tag Bolt or Tag Team, you'll see like the Tapu Koko and the Thunder Mountain becoming like a key part of the Pika Rom deck. And like without those 2 cards, that deck more or less doesn't function. So these cards, despite being like these one-off like random cards, it's super integral to those decks existing. Almost to the way that I would say like Precious Trolley is integral to like Mega King, Mega Absol existing, right? Like you prize that card, you're feeling it. So like that's kind of the degree to which these cards are important.
Yeah, this card was also very important for the Rayquaza deck. It was attach a basic energy card for discard to each of your basic dragons. Like there was no restriction. Like
so crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, you'll see these cards are pretty cool. Like they're like the ace specs of the time, but unlike ace specs, like they're also Pokemon, they're stadiums, they're energy. And then the main mechanic from this era is the GX Pokemon. Which, to be honest, Daniel, like I don't think they differ at all from like EXs we have now. The only difference is they have something called the GX attack. So what did I just do? These are all tag teams. So let me pick one that's not. Or that's
you gotta go a little bit farther back.
Or let me just we'll pick Zoroark, I guess, because that's probably the most famous one from here. So what the GXs had that is unique to them, which is a really cool mechanic, is in Sun and Moon, like the video game, there's something called Z moves, which was like once per battle you could use like a special move. So GXs, once per battle, you could use the GX attack, which was like it's a more powerful attack, and then you just can't GX attack the rest of the game. So you had to time when you use your GX attack. And some Pokemon had actually pretty mediocre GX attacks. Like Zoroark is one of the best Pokemon in the format, but its GX attack was actually almost never used. But its GX attack, for example, was choose one of your opponent's Pokemon as attack and use it this attack. But then some Pokemon would have like GX attacks that are like take an extra turn. Or some of them would have like Gardevoir has like shuffle 10 cards into your deck from your discard. So using your GX attack at the proper time is like a huge part of this format. And like once your opponents use their GX attack, then like the game changes a lot. So otherwise GXs are the same as EXs. Like they evolve from basics that aren't EX 2 prizers, and like there's basic ones like we have now with EXs.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Sometimes like what they did with the GX moves as well is they like put them on like cards that are already pretty good just to take them to like that competitive tier. So I think a really good example is Lycanroc GX, where Lycanroc as a card was really strong, but mostly because no K at the end. Mostly because its GX attack was a one-time nuke that you could kind of use at any point in the game to kind of help you catch up. So its attack was 110, Claw Slash 110. You're like, all right, whatever. Like, who cares about this? Its ability is Boss when you evolve it, but then having Dangerous Rogue GX was like an ability to one-time just nuke your opponent in a format where, like Kieran said, nukes didn't really exist. So sometimes these GX attacks weren't like necessarily broken. They were just used to take like a otherwise mediocre, like borderline card and push it over the edge a little bit. So this is a good example of that. But like typically the best GX cards did not have really good GX attacks. So like Buzzwole GX was like whatever, no one cared. Tapu Lele GX, no one used that. Zoroark GX, no one used that. But then there are like cards that are functionally not as strong that'd be given good GX attacks to become relevant. So this is like kind of an example of that as well.
Yeah. So, and like support Pokemon were like way more prevalent in this era too. So like this Lycanroc is one of the main ones. So its ability is just Boss. When you evolve it, it's Boss's orders. And like this was like played with Zoroark. Eventually when Buzzwole came out, it was played with Buzzwole. So yeah, it was a very popular card that saw a lot of play. And like I think nowadays, like I think there are Pokemon in the format that have the ability, like the same one, we just don't see play in standard now.
Hariyama, I think does.
Yeah, Hariyama has exactly, right? So it's like so yeah, I don't know, like back in the day, like these support abilities were like a lot more used, which I think is really fun in the format. And like
I think another factor of this format too.
But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to say on your support point, another part of this format is there are no nukes. So you're able to play these like support Pokemon down, like Tapu Lele GX. When you compare it to like we've had this conversation on the podcast before, when you compare Tapu Lele GX to the power of Fish, like Lumineon V, right? Both 170 health, both of the same ability, but Tapu Lele existed in a format where 170 was bulky. Like,
Yeah.
this is pretty big. And so, like, a lot of these support Pokemon, quote unquote, were fine to leave on your bench because they're never getting one shot anyways. Tapu Lele had no weakness. You're like almost never one shotting this over anything else in your opponent's board. So, like, if your opponent's playing like Zoroark and they put a Tapu Lele down, anything that kills Tapu Lele will probably kill Zoroark or at least be close to it. So you're just going to kill the Zoroark. So these almost never became liabilities. So this entire format was very support Pokemon heavy. It wasn't like unlikely to see a deck playing 3 Tapu Lele. Whereas, like, if you saw a deck playing 3 Lumineon Vs, you're like, you're on drugs, brother. Like, it's a completely different ball game, right? So a lot of support Pokemon. There was Gust, there was Unconditional Gust and Guzma, which I'm sure we'll touch on. But these support Pokemon were different. There was no liability aspect to these for the most part. So that's another important part of this format. Like, when you're playing it, when you guys try this, you're able to put your Lele's down freely and not really care about it.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like Squawk where that thing's just free 2 prizes. And like Lele had a really good attack. Its attack was just it's 2 colorless, so like any deck could use it, and then it was just do 20 for each energy attached to both Pokemon. Which, like, in a format that's like revolved around 2-shotting, it's actually very good because you can 2-shot with Lele, or you can like finish something off with Tapu Lele. So yeah, like the
card was incredible.
Yeah, the other card that's like very played in this format that Neil mentioned is the Guzma. I mean, this card's too good. Like, I don't know why they printed this instead of Boss. Yeah. It was just Prime Catcher as a supporter. So like decking or like trying to stall things like wasn't as easy as it is now. Or it was just like hard to stall stuff in this format just because Guzma existed. So I mean, most decks play lots of copies of this card. And then the other card that's used for setting up in this format is Bridget, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Bridget, like, so every deck, like, you can play supporters and you can go first. So, like, Bridget was search your deck for either 1 basic EX or 3 basic Pokemon, except for Pokemon EX. You could actually get GXs with it. So then you would get, or actually, wait. This doesn't exist in this format.
Was this even in format?
I'm tripping. I'm thinking of the format before. It's Elms. Yeah, there's Elms in this format.
It's Elms.
Yeah.
I was like, bro, I was like going through all the encyclopedias in my head. I'm like, that has to be from X and Y, bro.
Yeah. I literally was like, wait. It was, I should not type in Professor Elm. They do the same thing, basically. That's why I got them mixed up. All right, yeah, Professor Elm was search your deck for the 3 Pokemon with 60 HP or less. So, like, it was basically, like, you play this, like, this is how you get your basics. Like, now how things are, like, popping, everything has 70 or less. Back then, you had to play Elm, and they had to have 60 or less to get your basics. Was how you would do it. So,
yeah. And there wasn't any huge stipulations on having 60 HP back then versus 70. Like, there's always, like, those key bench points. I don't think there was a huge one with this. Like, you'd think about Lele for 3 energies or Zoroark with 3 bench Pokemon. No huge, like, 60 HP hitters, I don't think, that made you struggle with this. So,
this
card was really good.
Was pretty much it. But
right. Yes, good point. And, like, this card was basically the staple. And, like, a lot of the time you just see Lele for Elms turn 1, right? Because you don't care about putting the Lele down. Elms is a good support Pokemon. It's one of these supporters that kind of makes this format healthy. So, like, in some of, like, the greatest formats of all time, quote unquote, you'll notice that this supporter exists. Whether it's Collector, whether it's Bridget, whether it's Elms Lecture, and then even you can look at like one day when 2025 is long gone, we will look at 2025 as one of the great retro formats, I think. And I think that consistency stable exists in Buddy Buddy Poffy, and like these cards do exist, right? So you look at formats with like Battle VIP Pass, for example, and you look at that immediately, you're like, I don't like this because there's so much randomness in it. These key setup cards are super important to these formats, and so like this is one of those key ones. So I'm glad we went over this.
Yeah, so I think those are like probably like the key cards in the format. I mean, we can go through the decks, some of our favorite ones in the format. So I kind of have PTCG Legends, and I have Limitless. I filtered it for tournaments that took place in this format. So I think, like we said, like the main decks like use Zoroark. There was 3 big ones. There was the Zoroark Lycanroc, which I would say was the most popular. There was like the Zoroark Control, which I would say is the best one. And then there was the Zoroark Decidueye, which was probably the coolest one. And sometimes you would play Ninetales as well with the Zoroark and the Decidueye. So, you know, you're you used to love Zoroark. So what would you say is your favorite of the Zoroark decks?
Definitely that top one, Zoroark Lycanroc. It's my favorite. So this deck, I can kind of walk you guys through it real quick. It's like a dark fighting deck. It's quite simple. There's not much to it. You attack with Zoroark with Riotous Beating. So we didn't really cover the attack too much. So Riotous Beating does 20 damage for each of your Pokemon to play. So you cap out around 120. You have a stadium called Devoured Field that gives you +10. So you can hit 130. Like Kieran touched on, it's a very two-shot heavy format. So this deck was designed around two shots. So you pair it with the Lycanroc GX. Lycanroc GX one-shot Zoroark because of weakness, so this is a huge card to have in there. And then you also had Weavile, which is another cool card that would punish some of the psychic decks in the format, and Malamar. It did 50 damage for one energy for each of your opponent's Pokemon that had an ability. And like the golden number I would say in this format was like 200, 210, right? You wanted to hit that number. Lele counted towards this, Zora counted towards this. You see Magcargo, you see Ditto, you see Muck. All these Pokemon counted towards Evil Admonition's damage with Weavile, so those are huge. And yeah, the rest of the deck is pretty straightforward. It's just a two-shot deck. You have Guzma plus Lycanroc, so you have a lot of Gust. Zoroark's obviously your crutch in support, and then you play Judge as well, just to kind of disrupt your opponent here and there. That's basically the gist of it. There's not a whole lot more to it, but it's
yeah,
a really fun deck.
That's another thing we should talk about. There was like less good disruption cards. Like Judge was probably the best one back then.
Yeah.
But like yeah, there's also some other cards like Choice Band, which is like a staple in this format. It's like Choice Belt or whatever we had a couple years ago. Like you do 30 more damage to GXs, and then one card actually we should also talk about, was the Acerola, because this was a really popular card back then. So like, if you had a Pokemon with any damage counters, you could put it back into your hand and all cards attached. So it's like penny for like everything if it has damage. So in a format that's so like two-shot heavy, Acerola was a very important card to like pick up Zoroark or pick up whoever took damage. And then you also played double colorless energy, which is like double turbo with no drawback. So a lot of times you can just pick something up and then re-attack again. And I think like Zoroark, the reason the deck was so good is it always lacked raw power compared to the other decks in the format, but it had the most consistency out of all the decks just because of Zoroark. And there's this card that we saw play in a lot of Zoroark lists, the Magcargo. So its ability was Smooth Over. It's actually a reprint of a card from like the Ruby Sapphire era. It was just go through your deck, pick a card, and put it on top of your deck. It's like a baby Cypher, but obviously when Zoroark just can draw cards, it's basically just like search your deck for any card every turn. So a lot of Zoroarks would play like a 1/1 line. Some play 2/2 line of this. Because the ability stacked, I'm pretty sure, right? Yeah, the ability stacked. So if you had two, you could search for two cards. Yeah, like this deck was like very good. I think what makes it so good is that Zoroark can just attack for double colorless, and then like you can two-shot anything with Zoroark, and then like you have the stuff like you can like make a toolbox where you can play cards like Lycanroc if you want to play Weavile. You just put those in there. That gives you a little bit more damage, which is like super cool. So if you play this format,
so you
have
two nukes as well, right?
This is like one of the big decks, like to either build or play against. This was I'm looking at from Miloslav. He actually won LAIC last year, and it looks like he got top 30 tournament this year. And that year, the deck that won was the Zoroark Control deck. This was Daniel Tavia. This LAIC, there was no finals played because his opponent got DQ'd the day before. So kind of like this year's LAIC, actually. But instead of like replacing the finalists, they just didn't have a finals. It was like kind of funny. They just had like on stage just him with like no one else getting the second place trophy. So last week, Emil and I went over the most toxic cards of all time, and one of them that we talked about was this Oranguru, which exists in this format. I think at the time, like not that many people realized how broken Oranguru was. I think now people know it's a bit more broken. So there's this like Zoroark control deck where the idea is like you can still take prizes with Zoroark, but you try and like run your opponent out of resources first, and then you pivot to attacking with Zoroark. So you played a lot of disruption cards. You played this card, her name's Plumeria. You would discard 2 cards from your hand, and if you did, you could discard an energy from any of your opponent's Pokemon. You played this card, the Team Skull Grunt. It was your opponent reveals their hand, you discard 2 energy. So really focused on like burning the energy. And then like you played Oranguru, and then Oranguru you would just like put those supporters back, and then you had Zoroark GX. So like you would just draw a million cards to get the disruption cards back, and then you also had the Magcargo to like make sure you're drawing whatever disruption card you want. The idea is you would just keep going over and over and over, and then you would try and like run your opponent out of energy or like resources, because you also played like 4 Crushing Hammer and 2 Enhanced. And then once you completely devoid them of energy, then you just like go into Zoroark and then just attack. And then also you played ways to get rid of attacking threats, because if your opponent makes a big attacking threat, they're going to sweep you, right? So you still had the option to attack with Zoroark, but you also played this card, the Articuno GX. And its GX attack was discard all energy from both active Pokemon. So you could do this once per game, but the whole idea with this was like your opponent's built up a big threat. It's like, all right, let's Cold Crush GX, discard all the energy, and then go back to like stalling them with all these other cards. So this is probably one of the more toxic decks in the format, but it's definitely one of the stronger ones as well.
Yeah, toxic is a great way to describe this. I think this is a deck that people typically omit from their cubes wrongfully. Like I think it should exist in the
Well,
cube
if you're
because it
playing
was
for
that
fun,
strong.
you don't need this.
Yeah, if you're playing for fun, you don't need this. But if you're playing like a general tournament, this deck needs to be included because of how good it was. One thing I want you guys to have a look at as well is like when Kieran pulls up these lists. So like you can go back to the Zork, look at the price on the cards. Like this is part of the reason why we're showcasing this. You can build this whole deck for $58.99 in like this is like 7 years after it happened, and most of the expensive cards are like the Ditto or the Articuno, which you can proxy as well, right? So part of why we're showing you guys this format is because it's cheap. Like these trainers are all super cheap. If you want to do some bulk diving or going around to some stores, part of the fun, I think Kieran will agree with this. Like I would say 90% of the fun for me in building retro is sourcing the cards. It's like going around and bulk diving. You're in bins. You're doing fun stuff. Just trying to find these cards. Like the chase is really fun. So that's another thing I really like about this. Off topic to Zorak control, but the cards in this format are really really nice. You can see like the Zorak and even the Prism Stars are really nice cards to just own.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's part of it. And I think this deck is definitely an integral part of a cube. I don't know if I would build this if I was having just fun with my friends, but you know, it's a keystone of this format.
Yeah. So the next deck, all right, we'll look at one more Zorak deck, and it's like it's probably the most fun one.
Yes, for sure.
It's called Zoro Desi Tails. So it's called Zoro Desi Tails because it plays Decidueye GX and Alolan Ninetales. So Decidueye is one of the like best cards in this era. So its ability, it was called Feather Arrow. It's once during your turn before you attack, you can put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon, which might not seem like a lot, but back then it adds up. And I'm going to show you what the Alolan Ninetales does. Its attack was 70 damage and does 30 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So the idea was you would like use Decidueye to put like 2 damage counters on like little Pokemon, and you would use Snowy Wind to try and snipe stuff. And Decidueye also had a pretty cool attack. It had Hollow Hunt. It was its GX, which was just put 3 cards from your discard into your hand. And then also there was a different Alolan Ninetales that its first attack was just do 50 to one of your opponent's Pokemon. So the idea was you could just do like 20 to like imagine like you're playing standard, like you would do like 20 to Ralts, then you would just do Ice Blade for 50, finish it off. Which seems very weak, but I promise you back then this was actually like a very good strategy at the start of the game to kind of control your opponent's bench a little bit. And then the Alolan Ninetales, its ability was also when you evolved, search your deck for 2 item cards and put them in your hand. It was actually like Noctowl kind of. So it added like even more consistency to a Zorak deck. And like you basically just played a deck where like the goal is like snipe stuff a little bit, and then like you still have all the tools that like Zorak has. So this is like the more fun version of Zorak for sure, in my opinion, in this format.
Yeah, I think you explained that very well. This is definitely, I think, with Zorak, the most fun deck in this format. I have a lot of fun playing this deck. Even like now when I use these decks, this is my favorite one to play just because it takes so much to set up, and like Alolan Ninetales enables a bunch of like cool combos and stuff. You can go for like the Rare Candy Decidueye, like Timer Ball is a key part of this deck as well. The one issue this deck does have is it is quite inconsistent. Like you do need a lot of cards to kind of go your way for this to happen. You can see some of the lines are pretty thin. Like you have a 3-2 Zorak line, a 0-1 Magcargo. Like it gets a little weird sometimes. But Alolan Ninetales is so strong by itself, and even Alolan Vulpix using Beacon to set up set up your board. Yeah, so this is a no energy cost attack. You search for 2 Pokemon, put them in your hand. In a format without Iono, this is a very strong card because your opponent typically can't do anything about this. This is a key part about setting up that deck. And on my point in the last deck about how cheap this format is, you'll start to see a couple exceptions. So like Alolan Ninetales GX has spiked up quite a bit in price. That card is like, I don't know, what is it now?
$20.
Yeah, $20. So $10 each. That card's gone up quite a bit in price. Your Ditto Prisms are expensive, and your Decidueyes are pretty cheap, so I guess that's okay. But yeah, so this deck's super fun. It also uses a card that both Kieran and I love very much, Max Potion. So that's a card that kind of floats around as one-ofs in some of these lists in this era. This is a card that would be super OP today. Heal all damage from one of your Pokemon as an item if you do discard all energy. So very, very powerful healing. And like looking back at this format, I am surprised that there weren't more copies of this card kind of floating around. Just given how heavy it was on 2 shots. And I guess you do have Acerola as well, but yeah, so a lot of these decks use Max Potion. This deck is a very good user of Counter Gain. So Counter Gain is a good example of a comeback card. This card does exist in Standard right now. So like this card will be used a lot because you'll beacon your turn 1. If your Vulpix dies, you can use Counter Gain with a Fairy Energy to attack with Ninetales the next turn. You know, Snowy Wind or Sublimation if your opponent's active as an Ultra Beast. So ton of cool things going on with this deck. I think if there's one deck that I would make sure I build from this format, it'd probably be this one because I think it shows the most in terms of what this format has to offer, and it's super fun. I think all of you would love it.
Yeah, can you imagine if Guardy had max potion in this format? Like they can
Oh
just
my
like clear all the
God,
energy
dude.
off their Pokemon, like reset them. And
Yeah. So nasty.
That'd be
Like the
crazy.
card is so good. I bought a bunch of gold ones just in case it ever comes back to standard. But and actually, this is a good opportunity for us to shill one of our later episodes. Kieran and I are going to be recreating our 2013 Top 4 Nationals game, which is going to be super fun. We're waiting for a time where we can meet up in person to do it, and we're going to do like literally a tabletop game of his Kling Klang deck, which is the originator of the Shift Gear podcast, versus my Thunderous deck. And we're going to run back. We'll bring our trophies even to have there in the background.
This one right here.
Yeah, that one right there. Mine's somewhere back there. We're going to run back this game. And both of our decks, I think, I think your deck played a lot of Max Potion. I think my deck played one Max Potion.
I think played one,
yeah, but there's a lot of Max Potion going around. You'll see the true power of Max Potion in that matchup because he uses it a lot. So I'm really excited for that one. So
yeah, that'll be a fun episode.
future
To
episode.
get going.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Speaking of fun, Neil, actually, the deck that got second at LAIC is probably the most fun deck. I think, in my opinion, the most fun deck in the format because it has a very unique gameplay pattern that, like, I can't really think of many other decks that have ever had this. Or one that's been viable. Like this deck was actually like very, very viable. So Grand Bull, its attack is all out. It does 30 damage. Okay, but if you have no cards in your hand, it does 130 more damage. So you would do 160. So then you would use cards like the Choice Band so that you could get up to 190. And then you had this Stadium, which is one of my favorite, the Shrine of Punishment. Between turns, put 1 damage counter on each Pokemon GX and Pokemon EX. The whole idea was this is supposed to be like a one prize deck that can like actually one-shot some of the GXs in this format. And like you might think it's hard to get your hand to 0, but you play like a lot of cards that enabled it. Like lots of Ultra Ball, you played you played cards like this, like Fiery Flint, which is like just discard 2 cards from your hand. You had this of Strikeout, which is one of my favorite support Pokemon of all time. Its ability was discard your hand, draw 4. But really, the reason the deck worked was you played this Macargo that we've gone over a couple times, and you played Oranguru. So this is a different Oranguru than the broken one. This one was still very good. And its ability was Instructs, draw until you have 3. So you would basically play with like a super small hand the entire game, and you would just use Macargo and Oranguru as your engine to pick the cards you need. And then you had some other cards, like this one, the Diantha. If one of your fairy Pokemon were knocked out, put 2 cards from your discard into your hand, which was very, very powerful. You had this card, the Apricorn Maker, which was search your deck for 2 cards with Ball in the name, so you would just like get Ultra Ball, Nest Ball, Great Ball, whatever, so you can get your hand to 0. But yeah, this was like a really, really, really fun deck, in my opinion. Like you just basically play your hand to 0 every turn, all out, and then you have a single prize deck that's just like keeping up with these 2 prize decks. So it's a bit clunky to get going a little bit, this deck, but once you got it fully going, like it felt amazing. This is one of my favorite decks for sure. So I don't know if you've played this deck much, but this is definitely one of my favorites in the format.
Played against it a lot, that's for sure. I think, this is another staple, I think, of building. So like for you Rogue enjoyers out there, this is like your bread and butter. Like this is something that was, I don't know, thought of in some dude's basement, brought it to a tournament, and somehow it worked. And I think this is just the coolest deck. Also, you want to talk cheap. If you can go back to I'm curious how much this deck costs.
Yeah,
you're good.
$40.
$40 to build this deck. Super fun. I don't know what we're looking at towards LAIC.
Yeah, Tord also got top 8 LAIC. I just remember Tord played it at the tournament too, so I was looking it up. Yeah, his list was a bit different.
He had the bodybuilding dumbbells too. This card was pretty cool.
Yeah, it gives your stage 1s plus 40 HP.
Yeah.
But
so this deck was just a constant battle of just trying to get, you'd 170 on this guy. This deck is just a constant battle of trying to get your hand to 0. And it's like a puzzle every single turn that you have to basically get to 0, but also play the cards you need that turn to keep your Grand Bulls flowing, keep taking KOs with Guzma. Like there's a lot of things that move in this deck. And I think it was like legit one of the most fun decks to play. Shrine of Punishment is such a cool card. It promotes like those 1 prize attackers. And I think this deck is a must have, which admittedly I actually don't have in my cube right now. So I need to fix that. Oh yeah, I remember we set up on this thing, right, where you were going to build some, I was going to build some. I think Dadton was going to build some. We had like this whole cube going on. I think Dadton has Grand Bull. That's why I don't have it.
Yeah.
Guy ruins my life.
I mean, look at this LAIC. There's so many names that I recognize in this top 8. Actually, almost everyone here still plays from this.
Yeah.
And this was from 2018. Cool. So then other decks I think are like staples of this format. All right, like this deck is like probably one of the more aggro decks. Like Zach Lesage, actually fellow Canadian. He was very famous for playing this deck. the Blacephalon deck. So like if you want to play aggro in this format, like this is the aggro deck. So Blacephalon's attack was just, it's called Mind Blown. You put any amount of fire energy from your Pokemon into the Lost Zone, and you do 50 for each. Its GX attack was actually pretty solid. It was like 1 energy, just discard a prize card. If it was a fire, attach it to this Pokemon. Or one of your Pokemon. Yep. So it was basically just take the prize as GX. And you would play this card, the Naganadel. It was an Ultra Beast. So it was 1 string a turn before you attack. You may attach a basic energy from your discard to this Pokemon. So you would play a bunch of basic fires. You would just throw them in the discard. You would use a bunch of Naganadels to bring them back, and then just one-shot stuff with Blacephalon. So this is probably like one of the more simple decks. This probably is the simplest deck, I think, of like the good decks in the format. It's literally just like use this Blacephalon and take a bunch of prizes. And you have this as your 1 prize with the Naganadel. Its attack was Turning Point. If your opponent has exactly 3 prize cards, it does 160 instead of 80. So the Ultra Beasts were like a mechanic in this, or like there's like a class of Pokemon, kind of like how we have Trainer Pokemon now. And all their attacks revolved around prizes. Like when your opponent was at X amount of prizes, like do something special. Was always their effect. So this one was just if your opponent's at 3. So I mean, I don't really have a lot to say about this deck. It's like very straightforward. I think it's very obvious. Like it's just like it's like kind of like Golden Go. You just like one-shot stuff. So it's one of the few decks that can one-shot in this format. The downside of it is that it doesn't have that much good 1 prize attacking option, and like your attacker is like a basic EX that doesn't have as much health as some of the evolutions. But this deck is definitely super, super strong in this format.
Yeah, I think this deck was a little bit underrepresented too in the grand scheme of things. I think this deck was a little bit better than what its limitless data may suggest. But yeah, this deck was kind of everywhere. It featured a card called Beastring. I think this is an important card we got to cover as well.
Too,
yeah, so Beastring was a card that you could only use with Ultra Beasts. And like all the Ultra Beasts, for those of you who don't know, like Buzzwole, Blacephalon, Pheromosa, like all those guys. You could only play this card if your opponent has exactly 3 or 4 prize cards remaining. So a lot of the time, this is a 1-turn thing. You needed this on 1 turn. Your opponent was going to jump from 3 to 2 or from 4 to 2, whatever. And you had 1 turn to find this card. And what this card did is you search your deck for 2 basic energy cards attached to one of your Ultra Beasts. So obviously very strong. You can only use it on 1 to 2 turns in the game. So you'll see this Beastring card kind of pop up in other decks as well. But it was famously strong in this Blacephalon deck because you had no energy excel to Blacephalon itself. So although this wasn't a very heavy like one-shot format, it was difficult to get the Blacephalon going if you didn't have Beastring on at some point. So to keep that constant stream going, you needed this. I think the other important card in here was Heat Factory. Maybe we can have a look at that. So that's another A-Spec, or sorry, not A-Spec, Prism Star, yeah. Where you get to discard, it's a stadium, you get to discard a fire energy from your hand. If you do, draw 3. So this was played in here. It was played in formats after this in the Reshizard, like Welder nonsense. So, and one thing actually, sorry, that we forgot to point out is this was like the early days of tag team before tag teams existed. So like this was like the last hurrah before tag teams came and basically just ruined the entire game of Pokemon. So for that reason, this format is also very sacred. So a lot of people like kind of have that nostalgia towards it. It's like, oh, the game was so good before they printed tag teams. So it's another factor of this. Other than that, don't have a whole lot to say about this, other than the fact that Blacephalon is actually a really nice looking card, and so is Naganadel, the Hollow. So I have a lot of appreciation for how these cards look in this time. I think they look really good, very simple, and like also really cheap. So good collector's cards.
Okay, the next deck I want to go over is probably one of my favorites, is the Gardevoir GX deck. So I mean, I think everyone knows Gardevoir is one of the most broken card of all time. Like just in terms of like getting good printings. Like obviously right now we have one of the best ones. So back then, Gardevoir GX was tier 1, like a year before that. So this is like one of the weaker versions of Gardevoir. I'd say this deck is probably tier 2 in this format. Like it might even be like teetering, like bottom of tier 2, because it's a bit inconsistent.
Yeah.
But, so its ability was Energy Acceleration, so similar to the one we have now. But its ability was just you can attach a Fairy Energy from your card to one of your Pokemon. And like that doesn't count as your attachment for a turn. And its attack was 30 damage for times the amount of energy attached to both actives. And like honestly, like you could make really big, like it doesn't seem like it, but you would make really big Guardies and just like one-shot stuff with Guardy. GX. And then its GX attack was shuffle 10 cards on your discard into your deck. So like you could just like reset the game if like you need to get resources. And then you played this Swampert, which was the power draw Swampert. So its ability was once during a turn, you may discard a card and draw 3. So that was the engine for this deck. That was how you drew cards. And then you played this Ninetales that we showed earlier in the Zoroark deck just to like get items. So like this would help you get your rare candies to like get set up because you have like so many stage 2s. And you normally played a 1-1 line of this Solgaleo. There was 2 different Solgaleos, actually. And the deck it was a debate of which one to play. One had the ability that was just like you can switch your active. This was probably the more popular one. It was just for 2 energy. It was attached to basic energy cards from your discard 20 your bench Pokemon. And the other one was your Pokemon in play. Its ability was your Pokemon in play have no weakness. So you wouldn't have to worry about like Guardy getting one shot. And then this deck is the one deck that played the super boost energy because you played so many stage 2s. You played like 3 different stage 2s in the deck. If you could get 3 into play, you would get this. It counts as 4 energy. So for Gardevoir GX, this is basically just 120 damage. So this deck is super, super fun. Like, this is probably my second favorite deck in the format. I used to love playing Gardevoir GX, like the previous iteration the year before. That's one of my favorite decks of all time. And like the deck is just like so awesome, to be honest. Like, you just get all these stage 2s in play, do a bunch of damage. I don't know, like just evolving. Like, you basically make like a board of all evolved guys, which I just find fun. Like, I really enjoy evolving in the Pokemon trading card game.
This is true.
So yeah, it's just fun. Like, that's all I have to say really. Like, it's just fun. Like, I just really like this deck. It's like super, super fun.
Very well explained. And I would say the greatest talking point about this is that you can play these promo cards. All the basics have
the Toys
cool
R Us
promos.
Yes, Toys
R Us Vulpix, Toys R Us Cosmog, and Promo Curlia. So a lot of cool arts you could play in this as well. The full arts of Gardevoir and Ninetales are really nice as well. I think so. This was one of those decks that kind of fell off, like you mentioned, like towards the start of this format. But then when Lost Thunder came out, it introduced Alola Ninetales, which really brought this deck back to life. And like, I'm pretty sure Sumlot was the first format I played from coming back from my retirement. So I think that was also part of, or maybe I played a little bit earlier than this, but I do remember Alola Ninetales being a huge addition to this deck. And like, this deck not really existing too much before, but Ninetales providing that little boost that it needed to get back into relevancy, I suppose. And like, I think part of this deck too is this is one of those decks where one of the rare decks in the format where you are taking one shots. So a lot of what your strategy is when you guys build and play this, you're going to notice is that you're trying to build this big unkillable Gardevoir GX. And by doing that, you're using Secret Spring, you're attaching Super Boost, your double colorlesses account for the attack damage. So this is one of the few decks in the format where you can actually take one shot. So I find it's a really popular one. When I bring my cube somewhere, everyone wants to play this deck because you're able to just kind of like build a train, run over everything. So really cool deck. I have it built. Like I said, I think it's another deck that you probably should build if you have the chance to build this format. And again, they're not expensive, so you're able to do that.
Agreed. Okay, my other favorite deck, I need to find okay, 2 people got top 32. There's no list, so I might have to go to the ECG Legends to find it. So my actual favorite
guys,
deck...
the other thing about this, sorry, one thing. The other thing about this, it only has like one published tournament, right, for this format?
Well, no, there's multiple. I just picked LAIC because like that's the big one. Like, there's...
I remember there just being a complete shortage of tournaments for this format.
Oh, there's some regionals, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah, there's Roanoke, there's Brisbane, which had 150 people. Harrogate.
Special event Dubai, 20 mans.
I think Sam Chen went to that. Like, it used to be a special event merchant. Let me see. Oh no, he didn't go to this one. All right. Wait,
that's crazy, bro. 21 mans. That's less than a League Cup, bro.
Yeah. Okay. This was my favorite deck of the format. Was like a Tapu Koko spread. So this is some random seniors list from LAIC. So like, there's this Tapu Koko, and its attack was straight up just do 20 damage to everything. But back then, when things didn't have a lot of health, this was actually enough damage to like actually like board wipe over the course of a game. And you would play that Shrine of Punishment card from earlier, where it's between turns, you would put 1 damage on EXs and GXs. And then you had this Passimian, which was it does 30 damage for each of your bench Pokemon for a double colorless. And then you had this Passimian that was, if your opponent's, as long as it's on the bench, your Passimian's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active evolution. So against Zoroark, so Zoroark was so popular, you had Passimian, like this combo to like help you one-shot them. And then you would also use Koko to like soften everything up. And then you played this Tapu Lele that had Magic Swap, which was move any number of damage counters in your opponent's Pokemon to their other Pokemon any way you like. So you could just like rearrange all the damage on their board and like send it into like whatever Pokemon you want, which was like really, really awesome. So I've always loved spread decks and like kind of stuff like that can move damage. Like there was a Dusknoir with this attack as an ability. That's one of my favorite cards. So my favorite version of Tapu Koko was actually like a little bit before this format, but like even in this format, like I still love this deck. This is one of my all-time favorites. And I think spread decks don't really exist in Pokemon anymore. So I think if you want to like play spread, as if you're a newer player who's never gotten to experience that archetype, this is probably like the way to go, is to play like a deck like this. It's like really, really awesome.
Yeah, another one prize strong deck in this format. And you can kind of see why we like this format, why a lot of people like this format. There's a lot of like strong one prizers that make cases for not needing to be ultra rare 2 prize Pokemon and it makes the game really balanced. Like you'll find that like a lot of the time, like one of my favorite matchups I think is like this deck versus Zoroark, where like you're playing Zoroark like in Rock, you got these big guys, you're taking a KO almost every turn, but this deck it basically comes down to a coin flip of if this deck can catch up by the last turn of the game to magical swap all your damage to the places they need to be to take 3 KOs on GX. It's like it is so fun to just play those matchups over and over, and like this deck seems like it's like really niche, right? Like you're hitting for 20 everywhere. You're like, oh, what am I really doing with this? But with Choice Band, with Shrine of Punishment, with all these like modification cards, it builds up so fast. And I think this is one of the, I agree with you in saying this is one of my favorite decks in this format as well. It's just so fun to just, spread damage everywhere.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm trying to think if we missed a big deck from this format that's popular.
Probably Rayquaza would be the one I would say.
That's right. I was going to click on that one.
And Malamar too.
Yeah, this was before Rayquaza was like Rayquaza became like very good at Worlds that year, and then I think Rotation just hit the deck super hard. I forget what it lost, but yeah. So like Rayquaza GX was its attack was 3 energy and it did 30 damage times the amount of basic like grass and lightning you had in play. And its ability was kind of cool. It was when you put it onto your hand from your bench, like discard the top 3 and attach a basic energy from your discard to it. Like you could kind of give up cards in your deck and like gain an energy. And then you play discard the Vikavolt, which is really fun. It was like it was a stage 2. It was you can search your deck for a grass and a lightning and attach them to your Pokemon any way you like. So this is how you would generate energy. Then you had a 1 prizer. Like I know this doesn't seem that strong, but this Telmize just did 130 for 3. This was like your 1 prize attacker. So yeah, Rayquaza is one of the decks that could one-shot your opponent. It was a little bit clunky sometimes, like to set up the Vikavolts, because you don't really have a draw engine. Like that's the problem with this deck. But if you did get it set up, like it was very good because Rayquaza could just one-shot anything. And like we're saying, like one-shotting stuff is like a premium in this format.
This was anytime I see this card. Actually, $98 before raise. Jesus. All right, don't build this deck. Yeah, don't build this.
Yeah, this deck's not that good to be honest. You don't need to build this one.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have this build. I don't even I barely recognize it as a deck that was big in this format. The only thing I think about with this deck, remember the Milton League Cup? That's all I can remember.
Yes, I do remember that one.
The Milton League Cup where Andrew Estrada dragged me to McDonald's and caused me to miss the first 4 minutes of my round. I get back and my opponent's like, yeah, bro, sorry, I'm taking the win. Peace out. And he was playing Ray, and then he ended up in top cut, and it was just like this whole like jokes ordeal where we had to cancel that guy. But that's all I think about when I see this deck.
It was so funny because the dude was like so apologetic. I'm so sorry, man, whatever. Like, I feel so bad for you. I'm like, bro, just let me play then, bro. Like, why are you forcing this? Like, it was so stupid.
Dude, it was so fun. I think it was at like 3-1, right? So the winner gets in a cut, the loser gets out. And this is back when like League Cups did not happen every day of the year. So like these were like relatively big deals. You're going into a League Cup, you're like, all right, this is my chance to like do well. It's not like today where like if I walk in today and that happens, I'm like, all right, bro, I don't care about you. Like move on with your life. But yeah, I sit down and bro was like, yo, I'm so sorry. I'm all this. I'm like, bro, if you're that sorry, let's just play the game. Like it's not really that deep. And anyways, it ended up being a really funny story. And it came all down to Andrew Estrada wanting a McDouble and taking me out to McDonald's and making us late. I think I got like an apple pie or something, so at least I got something out of it. But that's all I can think of when I see that card. So funny, man. Classic. Classic man who shall not be named.
Yeah, I remember that guy came back, talked a lot of trash, and then he promptly exited the community when he realized he couldn't do well anymore.
Yeah, bro got bullied, bro. The other deck I think we got to touch on is Buzzwole as well.
Yeah, Buzzwole's sure. Yeah, I saw Alex Shemansky actually. Okay, yeah, it's wrong one. He got top 8 with it. Cause I remember at the time like, this deck wasn't like seen as that good, but like it was definitely like a deck in the format. This deck got very good. Like it was very good the year before, and then this
when it had artillery, it was really good.
It was like it's okay in this format. Yeah, this is like another aggro deck. Buzzwole GX was just like Jet Punch. It was 30 to the active and then 30 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So you would just like soften things up with the Jet Punch. And then its second attack did 160, but you had a lot of damage modifiers in this deck. So you had Diancie Prism, your fighting Pokemon do 20 more damage, and you had the Beast Energy. If it's attached to an Ultra Beast, you do 30 more damage. So with that plus Choice Band, you could add potentially an extra 80 damage to your attacks. So you could do 240 with the Knuckle Impact. So this is another aggro deck, and then it also played the Lycanroc to like just gust stuff because you would try and like take prizes very quickly. And then like the Blacephalon deck, it played B-String. So like basically what you would do is when your opponent was at 3 or 4, you would play a couple of these, you would set up 2 Buzzwoles, then like you could use Knuckle Impact back-to-back turns and try and finish the game off that way. was kind of how this deck worked. So this is like another aggro deck. It's actually pretty good. I personally like never found it that fun to play, but it's definitely a good deck if you want to have like another aggro deck. But I would say Blounds, like Blacephalon, I think was a more defining aggro deck than this one in the format, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. I think it's like it is an aggro deck. It should be probably part of the cube. It's not my favorite deck to play. I just found that it was like a little bit too aggro. And like one thing that this deck really feasted on was that the best card in the format was weak to it. So like you'd eat the Zoruas, you'd eat the Zoroarks, even like some of the support Pokemon like Zeraora, and like there are a couple other GXs that you just one shot. So you carried an advantage into every game, knowing that 60% of decks play this one of these cards that you just destroy. And so like that being a thing combined with like Buzzwole, Baby Buzzwole having Sledgehammer that hit for 120 when there was so this card hit for 120 if your opponents have 4, which is like may not sound like a big deal, but it was annoying. And like there were cards that were literally centered around, or decks that were centered around this card. And throughout the formats, it was actually really strong, despite not looking that great. And so like the fact you had like that weakness advantage, plus the fact that you're just super aggro, you had the ability to kind of like go crazy. It was like Hopzation if Hopzation was good. You KO a lot of things really fast, and like this deck was, I think, good for the format because you need this one aggro deck to kind of be relevant for people to respect it. But it was definitely better the format before when it had a draw support built in Octillery. So I don't know. I think it's important to recognize its existence.
Yeah.
Do you need to build it in your cube? I don't think it's a must, but I think it's definitely nice to have.
Yep, I think I would agree. Other than that, there's not like that many. Like there was the Malamar Coco deck, which was like okay. I don't think this deck was that good, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Like Malamar has like the same ability as Electric for Psychic types. Like this deck was very good, like the year after, I think, and the year before. It lost a lot of its like partners to rotations. I think why the deck fell off a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like a pretty fun deck. Like you would use Tapu Koko to like spread, and then you would use like this Baby Giratina that does 130 to finish things off. So you would like try and like Tapu Koko a couple times, soften the whole board, and then you would try and like one shot with that. You played this Onyx that just did 120.
This thing's hilarious.
120 for 4 energy just so you could one shot Zoric. That was really funny. And then you played this Arceus. It did 30 damage to like each of your opponent's Pokemon. So you would also soften stuff up like this, but it took 4 energy. So yeah, it was just like another spread deck. Like I prefer the normal Tapu Koko spread deck. But this deck is also like a deck in the format. It's like, okay. And then if you want to play,
was, I think. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. Keep going.
I was gonna say Malamar was an important key piece to this format. I think in different ways. Like this deck was definitely the weakest version of Malamar. I think Malamar throughout its like lifespan was really strong, and that is the one thing I wish about this format. I wish Malamar was a little bit better because that's like probably, I think if I go back over the years and answer genuinely, I think the Malamar into like that tag team format was my favorite deck I've ever played. Like genuinely just so fun. You're a one prize board, you're chipping away these big tag teams, and there's so much math that goes into it, like spell tags, Giratina Distortion Door, like all that stuff was so much fun. And I think my one gripe with this format is that Malamar is not as good as it should be. So that's like a cope pick. Like if I put that in my cube, I'd just be completely coping. Like I just want to play Malamar in some capacity.
No, I agree. I like the Malamar. Yeah, I didn't like the tag team format, but Malamar was my favorite. The last deck, if you want to play stall, is like this one was like the Steelix deck. Like the Steelix had like 190, and then like there was this metal frying pan where it's like metal Pokemon took 30 less. You would play this like Wailord that had 220. And then you would play kind of like when I was going with the Zora control. You'd have Plumeria and Team Skullgrunt to try and like disrupt. You had Hammers. And then you had this Unknown. This Unknown's really funny.
Max Potion.
Yeah, like the Unknown hand, it was if you have 35 or more cards in your hand, you can just, and this is in your active, like you can just say that you win the game. And this is hilarious. So this is how Control used to win back in the day. Like you would run your opponent out of resources, you would just sit there till your hand gets to 35, and you would just go Unknown hand. So if you want to play Control, this deck's kind of funny.
I can't even imagine the amount of like QA that had to go into printing that card. Like I can't imagine the hours that were spent at a Pokemon table, like trying to just foolproof this card and make sure that you don't accidentally print the most broken card in the history of the game. Like the number 35 must have been so like precisely calculated. But yeah, no, I forgot that card even existed. That's a great show. I totally forgot about that.
So
Unknown hand.
I think we went through now like all the decks I wanted to go over. So yeah, hopefully you guys found this a little bit interesting and fun. I think for Neil and I, it's just like a nice little episode for us to vibe, reminisce a little bit. Honestly, when this format was a thing, I think it was we were both in university. It was like a fun time. I have fond memories of this format and like that time in my life. So I enjoyed walking down memory lane today.
For sure. And like, if you guys are looking for resources, we'll leave a few in the description. There's a really good resource. I forget which website it is, but there's one where it literally lists like 25 to 30 viable decks you can build in this format. And like, there are ones we didn't even touch. So like Sceptile GX is a good one.
Right,
There's there's a bunch of like, I can't even think of some other ones, but there's a bunch of cool decks you can build, and they all feel not equal, but they feel like they're in the same vicinity. Like if you build Sceptile GX for your cube, you're not going to lose every game. Like whereas with other formats, you can't really say that, right? So I would put this format up in the top 5 in terms of my favorites, maybe even top 3. I think it's like really, like you said, a nostalgic time for us, but also a really, really good cheap format for you guys to build if you want to have something retro to have around you. Normally, like I would recommend like the tag team format because it was cheaper in the past, but this is now cheaper because the tag team is like completely ballooned. So and is a better format. Like the tag team format was comparatively quite ass. So whilst this one is a lot cheaper, it's also a lot better now, and I think these cards are pretty easy to find. They're still like actively in rotation, kind of kicking around. So give it a shot. Let us know if you like it. Let us know if you like the style of video. I think that's also important. Like we want to kind of produce stuff that people care about. So this is the first episode, and maybe a few of these like retro formats, or maybe we can highlight different retro formats that we suggest you guys try and give them a shot. And like these tournaments as well happen very regularly. Like there are people hosting 2017, 2018 tournaments at almost every regional. So I think that's important to outline as well.
I agree. Nice. Yeah, I don't know anything else that we need to plug.
No,
I'm trying to think.
I think they were good.
No, I actually know you'll find this funny. Like my sisters are playing their first League Cup this weekend.
Oh, nice. Where are they playing? Actually, you don't have to tell me that. That's probably
no
bad
doxing.
thing to say on live.
No doxing.
Yeah,
I'll tell you after.
no dox. Yeah, that's cool. Hopefully they do well. I think the other thing I would say is that Endgame has some new colors.
Oh, that's right. There's Mach. I think it's sold out already, bro.
I don't know. Fark told me it wasn't.
Oh, it's not? Okay.
He's not serious though.
Okay. Oh no, they have it in stock. Matcha green.
Yeah, so it's our legal obligation to tell you to go buy these. So go buy these. I think they're actually like my favorites too. I'm unironically using them. There's also the pink that's new. I think
this is new. Yeah, Sakura pink. I think.
Sakura pink. So always evolving. You know, I like those guys. They're good guys. They make good sleeves. So I'm a shill them out.
Yeah,
on the side, I'll shill for a sec as well. I'm still putting a lot of videos out on my own personal channel, so if you guys don't mind checking that out, trying to get on that road to 1,000 subs so I can hopefully monetize this at some point in my life and not lose money every time I post a video. So that'd be great too. Shift Gear is well past that. If you're new here to the Shift Gear channel, I know these kinds of videos reach out a little bit farther. Do subscribe if you can. We release videos every Wednesday at 12 when we're feeling like it and not being lazy as all hell. So that's also a plus. Other than that, I got nothing. Do you have anything else?
No, I'm good.
All right. Sounds good. Let us know down below how you feel about this video, how you feel about this format, and thank you for being here. As always, we'll be back next Wednesday at 12. Until then, peace out.
Later.